It has taken me, my entire life to get to this point, but I can honestly say that I'm glad that I struggled with severe cystic acne. Growing up, I'm very grateful that I had a little brother and parents that supported me. But once I started getting into middle school and high school, nobody really understood my skin or how my physical appearance impacted me. Especially growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, I had the influence of media. Before social media was even a thing, there were magazines, and I would go to the dermatology office and I would see like the 17 magazine and I would see all these girls with clear skin. And that was just something that I didn't have. Now, I vividly remember my first pimple. It was on the side of my nose, and I was in the 3rd grade in Mrs. A's class. And one of the girls in my class who was super sweet, her name is Carolyn, she comes up to me, she's like, "What's that on your face?" I didn't know there was anything on my face. I was like, I don't know, what is it? She's like, "Is that a wart? Is it contagious?" And I didn't know what to say. So to Carolyn, I was like, "No, of course it's not." And I covered my face, and I had a hard time focusing throughout the rest of the day in class. And the school had like this little roundabout where our parents would pick us up. And I remember getting into the back seat of my mom's car, and I looked over, kind of peered over her shoulder, looking in the rearview mirror. I was like, "Mama, what's this on my nose? Is this a wart? Is it contagious?" And she looks at me and she's like, "No, honey, it's just a pimple. It'll go away." Little did she know that acne would actually take over most of my life. Getting into middle school, I remember my first class asked us, it was like called core, and they asked us to write down our goals for the year and like who are we going to become and what we were going to do. And of course I had these lofty ideas of getting straight A's and studying science and being more fluent in Spanish, since my father was born in Argentina, but he never really spoke to me in Spanish the way I had wished he did. He also spoke German, but never really taught me. It was my grandparents who kind of did. And I was like, I'm going to take Spanish classes, like I'm going to be great. And I had my brand new outfit from Target on. And that was the year that acne started to take over my life and my skin. My scalp, I would get pimples in here, and then they would bleed, and they would be in the hairline. And I remember I would sit there because they were painful. And people in the middle of the class, like I was in cooking class, and they would look at that and they'd be like, "She can't cook in here, she's a walking infection." And I mean, it's true, you shouldn't be picking out your scalp while you're in a food class, a cooking class. Can you even believe we had those? And life skills, I guess it was called. But I just remember feeling so disgusting and overwhelmed because I had pimples all over my face that would bleed and all over my hair. And to compound it and to make it worse, nobody else in school had acne the way I did, and it really just started completely taking over. And this is when I started seeing doctors and dermatologists for my acne. And I remember seeing this really old guy. He was supposed to be, like a good derm. And I got into his office and we got some assistant of his that wasn't a dermatologist. And I remember how condescending she was to me. She's like, "Oh, it's acne, like it'll go away, it's not a big deal." And I'm like, well, people are teasing me about it and I'm bleeding in the middle of class and it's in my hair, like what's going on? And it was just, "Here, take this medication and go with it." And I didn't like that doctor, so we made an appointment with the same guy at the same office, and we requested to see him instead of, his assistant. And I had some spots on my lower leg as well that we biopsied. But he was nicer about it, but he was basically like, "Oh, the medication she prescribed didn't work. It was like minocycline." He was like, "Here, try Doxy." And not knowing it at the time, doxycycline can make your teeth yellow, it can make you feel like vomiting. And boy, did it make me sick. And throughout this entire time, I was, in school, and my acne was just getting worse and worse and worse. And I was tall, so I had one of those rolly backpacks, right? Well, the rolly backpack didn't look cool, but it was to protect my back. And these kids would kick it across the hallways to the point that my books would fly out and all of my homework would just get scattered across the hallway. And I would be late. And it was so hard to focus in Spanish or in bio or in whatever when, you're running late, the teacher's mad at you for being late, and, you can't turn your homework in because you don't know where it is because you literally shoved everything in your backpack because it was just kicked across a hallway. And I remember the kid, and he would call me things like the Exorcist and Giraffe, and that name really started to stick. Walking infection, pizza face, the walking disease. And it got to the point where the friend group that I hung out with, I had one best friend because she also had acne. But the friend group that we were in with, 2 other people, the 2 other people would like tease me. and I was kind of like the butt of the joke. I was the awkward one. I also never got like the weed. I never got the drugs the way everybody else did. And I was like part of the friend group, but I was only part of the friend group because I was this lanky giraffe-like pimple face that they could make fun of. But it got to the point where I was so distraught and upset with the way I looked, I just started to kind of spiral deeper and deeper into myself. And at this time, we started seeing a new dermatologist. I saw 2 to 3 different doctors. My family physician referred me to more specialists because we couldn't figure out what was going on. And even with the antibiotics, the acne just kept getting worse. And it was taking over my entire jawline, chin, and everything. And I started just kind of growing out my hair and covering it like on half of my face so that people didn't have to see my forehead. And I loved bands like, you know, the Misfits, the Ramones, like I loved the punk rock music. And so going into like my emo phase, I guess you would call it, it was just something that made me feel more protected because people, you know, would leave me alone a little bit more, or they were saying all these mean things about me. And I was like, well, fine. You know, if I'm ugly, I'm just gonna hide away. And I would wear this hood and this trench coat to school every single day because it wouldn't show off my back acne. Even in PE or in gym, I didn't feel comfortable dressing around anyone else because I had acne all over my chest and my back. And so I would change in the bathroom. And then if I would run, my pimples would bleed, and it was so embarrassing. And by this point, throughout the course of the school year, I'd probably seen 5 to 8 doctors, and it just kept escalating and escalating. And by the time that summer came and the next year came, the summer was horrible. I was depressed, I was anxious and angry the entire time. I had seen other doctors, naturopaths. Thankfully, my dad had a job that had medical insurance, so I was able to see different specialists, but like nothing that I was doing was helping. And I think I was probably under stress from the bullying, and it just kept getting worse. And I remember when I had come back to school, I had, you know, pimples all over my chest, my face, and my back, and I was in steel drum band. And I had a pimple like right here in the center of my chest. There was one kid, who shall not be named, who would tease me. He was my friend in elementary school, back in Mrs. A's class with Carolyn when I got the pimples on the side of my nose. But as we had grown into middle school, he kind of started hanging out with his friend group, and he was just becoming meaner, right? He's like, ew, Cassandra has a pimple. You should just pop it. I was just so embarrassed that I like tried to use my hair to cover it up, but it was the only thing I could think about in steel drum band. So what did I do? I went to the bathroom and I was crying, and I tried to pop it, and it was painful, but it also made me feel like I was doing something. And that was the start to some issues I had with associating pain as doing something or feeling better. And that was really rough for me because obviously popping a pimple isn't gonna make it better or go away, but it made me feel like I was doing something, and at least it was something that was creating a change. And I started to associate that feeling with like a sense of punishment because I was bad, right, in my own head, or I was ugly or deserving of this pain. And I started to identify with it, like Stockholm syndrome, like I don't even know. But that ended up being really traumatic for me. And I remember going back from steel drum band, and I had, you know, tried to like get a tissue to like blot away the blood, and they were like, oh my god, she really popped it, like whoa. That was just devastating for me, and it was so freaking difficult because of all of the things that I was going through emotionally and physically. And the entire time the acne kept getting worse, and I lost most of my friends. I stopped associating with them. I would go, you know, to medical clinics. I would take this medication. At one point, I was on almost 1,200 milligrams of tetracycline every day, and I felt so sick. I love my mother, but she would always tell me, oh honey, when you get to high school, it gets better. No, when I got to high school, it didn't get better. But we moved schools because of a family life change. This new school was supposed to be in a better district. We tried to like push over to a better district, but unfortunately, that better district also meant that everybody would get like a new car, and they had like the designer jeans. And I just wanted so badly to fit in that I was trying everything I could, and it wasn't happening. I was in a photography class, and I remember, you know, we were like developing the photos on our own. So we were shooting them and developing them in a dark room. And I remember my teacher looking at like some of the poses that my friends and I were doing, or like some of the still life things that we had set up. And he had looked at a portrait of me because it was one of the assignments. And he said, wow, this is a really great portrait. Like you developed this really well. I think that like, you know, these levels is going to be best for you. But wow, you've got a lot of bumps on your skin. Like, I don't know, maybe use makeup or don't stand in harsh shadows in the future. I know that he didn't mean it on purpose, but to have a professor or a teacher that you look up to tell you that maybe you shouldn't stand in direct light because your pimples create shadows on your face. Like, I laugh about it because it hurts, right? At this time, my grandfather was also dying, and he was like a best friend to me. And I was trying to get through school. I didn't realize that I had problems with my nutrition. It was never something that was officially diagnosed, but there were a bunch of issues that I was struggling with, or weird tendencies that I was using when I was bullied at school or when I was teased. I got names like pizza face. I got the most physical thing that ever happened to me was being attacked by a kid with a hockey stick, and then having pizza chucked in my back in the cafeteria, having it slime down my back. And I remember sitting there in the cafeteria and just feeling this warm thing hit my back. And I'm not gonna name his name, but this kid screamed out and he was like, "There you go, pizza face." And I left school early and I just went home crying. Now, it was after the hockey stick incident that I spoke to a counselor at the school. And I said, like, kids are teasing me about my acne, like my grandpa's dying, like I can't focus on anything, like I just feel awful. And she basically shrugged her shoulders and she said, well, you know, there's two sides to every story and the truth is somewhere in the middle. And based on what you're telling me, it sounds like, you know, a lot of people are saying this stuff. We could expel half the school, or you could just leave. And that was just so painful to me because I had opened up to someone, like an authority figure, to try to get help. I'd been seeing doctors and dermatologists. At this point, I was on Bactrim, so I was on like a bladder medication basically, and nothing was helping. And I wasn't a candidate for Accutane because I had one kidney and we had just kind of found out. And my grandpa's dying and I feel like crap. And now this teacher and this counselor is making me feel like I was the problem. So I isolated myself. I started doing my schoolwork from home. I started not showing up. I started, you know, spending time with my grandfather. I got passes and I graduated 2 years early. And I was like, this sucks. And I never walked through my graduation. I didn't want anything to do with school. I never went to prom. I never had those opportunities because all I wanted to do was focus on science and focus on biology and focus on photography and focus on the things that didn't bully me back. And little did I know at that point, science would end up being something that I could find comfort in or be fascinated by. And even chemistry. I was in an AP Chem class and I was not doing well because of my grandfather. And hyper focusing on school, I'm currently struggling with being a workaholic to the point that it's impacting my social life, my family, like skills, etc. But I think that was the start of it, where I would use distraction from my pain through homework or schoolwork as a way to focus on that instead of the emotional things that I just wanted to avoid. Through that, you know, those summers I was trying to understand my skin. I was applying makeup. I was just trying to pat it on and just layer it up. And that's when I decided to go to aesthetic school. There was an ROP program, meaning like a remote program, that had just opened up, and it was 2009, and I decided I'm gonna go learn how to apply makeup. I'm gonna be an esthetician. And at that point, I didn't even care about skin. I just cared about the makeup portion. I remember Mrs. V was one of the teachers and she was telling us about how the skin has multiple layers, and like this aesthetics teacher was teaching me more than a dermatologist ever had because I didn't have that chance to speak with derms, right? I was still breaking out. They would give me chemical peels, we would do high frequency ones, and I would do these things for others as well. And it was a place where my acne still made me feel ugly. I would still wear makeup to aesthetics every evening and every day because I was in night classes, but it was somewhere that I didn't feel as judged. And there was this one guy, he ended up being very creepy, not towards me, but towards other girls. And he ended up getting, I think, arrested for it. So he wasn't creepy to me, but he had really, really bad acne. And I was usually the esthetician, or the esthetician in training at that point, who was helping him with his skin. And even just the other girls that came in, or the other young moms, or the other women, or the men, and the non-binary friends, just being able to hold someone's face in your hands and to cup their cheeks and to make them feel better and to let them talk or to let them heal or just to make them feel relaxed and massage those points on their neck that get so stressed throughout the day. it made me feel like I was giving back in something that wasn't just my face. And while there were some girls in this aesthetics class that, were into modeling or who had like, these photo shoots lined up, and that's how I started getting into the modeling industry. And when I started, I was a makeup artist. I would do makeup for, local runway shows and things like that in San Francisco or San Jose. And San Francisco is not a fashion mecca or a hub by any means, not like New York or anything like that. But San Francisco and LA had some of those little opportunities. And when I was doing these makeup things for others, people would often confuse me for the model, and they would be like, hey, like, aren't you supposed to be getting ready? Like, stop helping her. I was like, no, I'm not in the show. And then I was scouted by a model scout and asked to kind of show up to some of these castings. And lo and behold, not only did I get cast, but I also got an opportunity to speak with Ford Models in San Francisco. And there was a runway coach who also had runway coaching courses, and he was the guy who taught me how to walk a runway. And I was obviously awkward and stiff at first, but his guidance was really appreciated. And his name was Charleston. And he was one guy that always looked me in the eyes, not in the acne. There were hosting shows that I did, little things here and there, but I could almost hide myself because I had, this makeup. I could hide my acne, and because I was getting good at it in aesthetics, people couldn't tell. Now, this is something that I don't want to talk about, but some horrible things happened to me at this time. There were also some family things that happened, and those of you who know, but some things that young women shouldn't blame themselves for happened. And I still blame myself for some of those things. And that was really rough. But those were some of the moments where my acne also started blowing up. But at the same time, here I was in the modeling industry. And so instead of going to therapy or instead of getting help or instead of calling the police, what did I do? I threw myself into my work. And I started working so hard. I didn't realize that some of those things that had happened when I was younger, not being the healthiest, I had kind of fallen back into just some of these weird patterns, and my nutrition wasn't the best. And I would constantly tell myself like, oh, the modeling industry doesn't discriminate, like you can eat as a model, because I was still eating, but it wasn't something that was healthy or mentally healthy or conducive to growth. But that's how I started modeling. And I was cast in New York Fashion Week as a runway model. I got to work at Elf Cosmetics, who by the way never paid me, by the way. I was a model for Elf Cosmetics for a hot minute. Did different things for cars, for actual designers like Prada in San Francisco, and got to work on some wonderful projects. Now, some of them were more official than others. I was in Milan we're not even going to talk about that. There was a very famous designer who basically told me my butt was too big and that my body shape was unproportionate, which was really hard. And I also was in Peru, and the modeling person there saw me in person without all the Photoshop, and she was like, well, you have a wonderful shape, you have a wonderful length, which is what she called it because it was in Spanish. She's like, wonderful length, but you have a lot of acne, maybe try antibiotics. And I just remember sitting there, antibioticas, and hearing that in Spanish, trying to translate to my mom who was with me, and being like, you have no idea what I've gone through with antibiotics. Like, you have no idea what I've gone through with my skin. There was a time I was on my way to Charleston's runway class, driving my grandma's car, eating blueberries because I had just taken my antibiotics, and I vomited all over the freeway. I just, like, out the window, all over the car, like projectile. And I was so upset and so embarrassed that I just turned around and drove home. And it's because my acne medication was literally making me sick because I was on so much of it at the same time, and the acne medication and then blueberries plus Cheerios and milk, it was not a good combination. But it was because of modeling that I could look at the image, and I didn't feel beautiful in my own skin, but I looked at that image and I was like, oh, that image is beautiful. But it's because of the lighting, the photography, the Photoshop, the designer, the photographer. It's because of them that it's pretty. Because it was me, but it also wasn't me. But that was kind of some of the first moments that I saw a sliver of beauty in myself, even though I accredited it to others. And while I was kind of diving more and more into the modeling industry, I started studying sports nutrition. I started studying more chemistry, kind of picking up those things from when I was younger. And at this time, I was in a very, very bad relationship, which I don't want to talk about. But there were physical and mental applications that still make me feel numb to this day. Like I just shut down. And in those relationships, I met this person through a modeling thing. And I constantly told myself that the industry wasn't creepy. There were things that I was ignoring and shutting out, like my brain was shutting them out, that were very, very creepy, unsafe, not okay things that happened to me, but happened even worse to others. I shut it out still. Like, I don't have words because my brain just like shuts them out or shuts them down. Like I've just lost my train of thought and I forgot what we were talking about. But modeling was something that I was doing. And I think this is a defense mechanism. I should speak to a therapist. I don't talk about it and I don't want to talk about it, but there were things about depression or about issues that I was having with stress and I needed to get help. And I threw myself into schoolwork, into understanding chemistry and nutrition and all of these things that I was passionate about because it was a way to distract from these negative things that were happening to me actively or in the relationship that I was in or in the industry, right? And I shut it out because I was telling myself, this is good, like this is where you want to be. Like, haha, look at those bullies in school now who would hit you with a hockey stick and throw pizza at you. Now you're a model, like what are you gonna say to them? I actually had to carpool to and from school, both in a bus and with my mom, with one of the bullies, one of the girls who bullied me, two of the girls who bullied me. And so it was kind of like my haha, look at me now moment. So I was trying to grasp, onto this model identity so desperately because I finally could have my image be a thing for me, right? I've spoken about it before, but I had major issues with credit card debt, with debt. There was a small period of time that I'm very ashamed of where I was into shoplifting. And it's because I felt the need to dress myself in physical value, such as designer jeans, which were a thing, right? Because I felt that I didn't have enough intrinsic worth as a human. So at least if someone was like, oh my God, pizza face, I could hold up this Juicy Couture sweater or this pair of jeans and be like, well, at least my jeans are worth $100. Like, who are you to bully me, right? And it was a horrible place to be in. But as I was growing, throwing myself into these things, not realizing that I needed help, there were times that it got to be way too much. The relationships, the school pressure, I needed help. Asking for help is one of the bravest, hardest things you can do. And sometimes help is thrust upon you or you're taken away without your permission because you are a danger to yourself or others. And I don't like to talk about those things, but I think it's important to because what is physical health or what is wealth or what is anything if you don't have your mental health? Like, this is your inner narrator. And if your inner narrator is constantly beating you up or belittling you, you're not going to be able to live the happiest life, right? And I really blame acne for making me try to hide things and cover them up instead of dealing with them. And getting help was one of the best things that I could do. And it was also one of the bravest. And that's when, my journey online was really underway. It was in 2010 that I first started my YouTube channel, back when I was in this phase of trying to, show off what I was physically wearing to people. And I would have this fake Gucci bag. And I would talk in this kind of voice because I wanted to be that model image. But it was very much fake and it was very much me trying to fit in. And it was also me exposing myself online in a way that I couldn't do in my real life. And that's why I stripped my makeup off and I exposed my bare skin because I didn't see anyone else talking about acne at the time. And as, I grew, as the channel grew, as I started to learn more about chemistry and biology and realize, oh, maybe those essential oils that I was taught about in aesthetic school really weren't a good idea. Maybe I do have inner trauma from being bullied in childhood or from stuff with my parents, even from when I was younger, or from these relationships. Maybe I don't have to put up with that. Maybe my best friend in middle school, maybe it wasn't just a phase, maybe this is who I am. And it's okay to maybe not judge myself for that and get rid of my internal homophobia and misogynism. Wow. All these things really started coming up because I started talking about them on YouTube. And when I look back on YouTube and I see the evolution of Cassandra and Cassie and Cass, and when I look and when I actually see and remember what was I feeling at that time when I was buying St. Ives apricot scrubs and the Neutrogena makeup wipes in my Target haul, remembering what I felt like, what I was feeling when I was doing my TV workout routine with no makeup, remembering what it felt like to show other people this workout routine I did when I watched TV, because God forbid I just watched TV and enjoyed it. I had to be, working out, right? Is that ADHD or is that some sort of body image issue? I don't know, still to this day. But seeing that transition and then seeing you know, the times that I actually started leaning into understanding who I'm physically attracted to, leaning into maybe it's okay to embrace my acne, maybe I don't have to cover it up. That time when I stepped away from YouTube because of another relationship with someone very, very lovely, but who was also very mentally unstable and needed help themselves. They needed to be in an institution, and seeing me crumble because of watching them go in and reliving all of these things that I hadn't still dealt with. It was because of YouTube and because of sharing this journey with other community members who would say, hey, I had acne too. Or hey, I also know what it feels like to not feel comfortable walking out the front door without something on your face. Or I also know what it feels like to judge yourself for the way you look, or to try all these products and have nothing work. And it became this community where we could talk, we could connect, we could create together. And the YouTube moments were really the ones that I felt the most connected, the least alone. And being able to lean into that it saved me. YouTube has literally saved my life time and time again. And I'm so grateful for it, but sometimes I don't even process it because I don't even realize how much the people and these connections have meant to me. And some of my best friends to this day are people that I met because of YouTube. I met one because of a makeover show on YouTube. I met two others because I had a meet and greet in Sephora in New York City and they showed up. And I met another one in a Sephora because he recognized me, and then we started doing makeup together. Like, YouTube has literally saved my life and given me some of the best connections in the entire world, and I am so grateful and thankful for that. And watching myself grow throughout these years, yes, there were problems with relationships, or there were problems with I had some very bad managers that I spoke about who saw this community that meant so much to me and said, oh, I can monetize this. I can take from this. I can have you sign power of attorney and give it to me because I totally have your best interest in mind, Cassandra. Talking about talent abuse is something else I think that should be discussed more because, again, here's a girl who was bullied, didn't know how to speak up for herself, ended up in abusive relationships, enters the work world, and ends up with talent abuse. Like, it's a continuing cycle. And I didn't realize it when you're that deep in it. Like, you don't realize that something's not normal when it is your normal day in and day out. But that is why once I started kind of stripping these things away, connecting with these community members, talking to people, I realized, Cassandra, you can wait for someday to be happy with your skin. I still had blemishes on my face at this point. I would tape up my mirror with papers so I didn't have to look at my face and pick at it. I would hurt myself because it felt better. It was like it took the pain away from all this and it put it right here in one spot that I could feel it. But I was trying to stop. So I'd put up these things and I wouldn't pick at my skin, right? I basically would write affirmations on them because meditation was supposed to make me feel better, right? Which I've been told for years, and yeah, it doesn't always work that way. I mean, we try, but it doesn't always work. I took one off and I looked at myself in the eyes and I was like, Cassandra, you could wait until someday to be happy, to be out of the credit card debt. The $80,000 of credit card debt that you used trying to buy items to impress people because you didn't feel worthy yourself. You could wait. Or you could wait until you have the perfect heterosexual relationship and to finally be attracted to dudes in the way that you want to be, right? You could wait until you finally have the doctorate degree. You finally are a dermatologist to be happy. You could wait until you finally have clear skin to just accept yourself and not beat yourself up every single day. Or you could say, you know what? Those things, such as financial liberation, such as healthy relationships, such as a dermatology title and credential, you can still work towards those. But you can love your skin and yourself now, even if this isn't fixed, even if these things aren't in place. You can still work towards those goals, but you don't have to hate your step every sense of the way. Because once you get there, is it really going to change anything? Are you going to be just as miserable? And you just have a degree and like a healthy relationship with someone that you're actually attracted to, and you actually just have clear skin and like maybe you have some money in the bank finally? And I was like, okay, Cassandra, let's try to love ourselves now. And that process took years. You can see it online. You can see the years of working on it, of therapy, of trying to work things out, of doing therapy online, of researching psychology and neuroscience and trying to figure out what's in yourself and why you are the way you are based on looking at others. But it always came back to, I could speak about these things in a safer way on YouTube than I ever felt that I could in other places. And YouTube was the one place where, you know, a therapist might sit there and nod and listen, or a doctor might sit there and write a prescription, which is important because of professionalism. But YouTube would actually speak back. And people online actually got it, actually listened. And people online actually would share. And it became this community that has saved my life. And even now, I have finally found ways to clear my skin. I found the right balance of stressors. I found the right skincare for myself. I am now an understanding of how these molecules, ingredients, skincare products work. I know how they work on my skin. I've worked with doctors and dermatologists. I've spoken at the American Academy of Dermatology and at the EADV. I've had the opportunity to have derms listen to me, and I'm like, what the f? Like, hey, hi, but also tell me what you know, right? And to be in this place, I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful, and I love my life because I feel that it has a purpose. I have a passion, and it's to help other people learn to love and embrace their skin, because I know what it feels like to be that 16-year-old. I know what it feels like to be that girl in that relationship at 17. I know what it feels like to be that person at 23 and at 25, and I know what it feels like to live with this. And I'm here to help people through my experience and through that knowledge to say, just give me a hug. Like, it's gonna be okay. We can work through this if we try. Sometimes it feels like it's not okay, but that's okay too. But it's because of acne that my life has a purpose. And my life has a purpose not because of the way I look, or not because I've been able to find out what works for my skin and help clear it, but my life matters because I've gone through that acne. And I wake up every day and I am a workaholic, and right now it is impacting my relationships. I haven't texted back those friends I was talking about that I've met online. I haven't even seen my own grandmother who has Alzheimer's because of the stressors of COVID and some of the things that I'm internally going through that I don't want to talk about right now. And I feel an extreme sense of guilt around that. And then you don't deal with it, and then it just compounds and it gets worse. And it's like, oh my God, well, I haven't spoken to you in 3 months, so we're just never gonna talk again. Like, it's an anxiety issue that I still struggle with, but you know what? It's because of acne that I even am in a place where my life has meaning. It's because of acne that I was able to come out and express who I am, who I love, and just give that love freely to people in this community, in my own life, and more. It's because of acne that I know what it feels like to not judge someone else for their appearance or for their skin. And it's because of acne I'm f***ing fascinated with science. I can work in an industry where I can care for and help others. I have a trajectory, a goal. I've worked with doctors and derms, and someday it's my plan to become one. And that, to me, it never would have happened without acne. If I didn't have acne, would I have just been this like lost young girl who's like, okay, like I'll follow the steps, like I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll just do what I'm told? Acne beat me down, but it taught me that you can either give up or you can pick yourself back up. And those life lessons, although I still struggle, those life lessons have been some of the most valuable that literally nothing else can replicate. And for that reason, and for this community, yes, I am grateful that I've gone through severe chronic cystic acne, because without it, this community wouldn't exist. This person wouldn't exist. And the wonderful, amazing things about life wouldn't be here today. And if you're struggling with your skin, I don't know what that feels like for you. I know what it felt like when I had pizza thrown at my back, or when I was popping my pimples in steel drum band, or when I was bleeding inside of cooking class. But I don't know what it feels like to be you. But I can say that when you need help, if you ask for it, if you try to speak up, if you try to get it, if you try to find a community that can support you, there is no such thing as not having hope. And I think that hope is something that this community and that acne gave me. And if I can endow that upon you, and to share with you that what you look like has no impact on what you can do for this world, I hope you write those down. I hope you take those words to heart. I hope you tape them on your mirror and look at them every single day, because what you look like has no impact on what you can do for this world. And those of us who have gone through something terrible or traumatic, I feel like it helps us connect to others. And sometimes we can turn that pain into a passion to help us do great things. And even though this feels like the end of this video, we're still in the thick of it. This is only the beginning. Some amazing things are going to happen in this lifetime and in our lifetime. And we are the ones who get to use our experiences to learn from, to grow from, and to shape this. And if that's not something to be thankful for, then I don't know what is. So thank you, little pimples that pop up on my skin. Thank you, acne that still plagues my chest and my back. Thank you, scars that remind me of what I've been through, because they aren't flaws, they are features. And they remind me that if I could go through all of that, oh shit, I can get through anything. So there's lots to be thankful for, but I hope you know that I am grateful, thankful for my acne and for you. And I hope this helps you realize that the same is possible for you as well. When I say be beautiful inside and out, I truly mean that, and I hope you take it to heart. So be grateful, be thankful for your struggles, because they are shaping you into who you are. And it's not until you're at the end that you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, that all makes sense, right? But work with those struggles. Share them in the comments with a friend. Find a skincare pen pal, share them with me. But truly, be beautiful both inside and out. When I say it, I mean it. I love you, and I cannot wait to see you in this next video. Love you guys. Bye.